Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a delightful show planned for you today. Can't wait to tell you all about it. Briahna, it's been lots of lab leak content this week, which is exciting for me. It's a topic that I have a lot of interest in, I enjoy talking about, so it's been a fun week on this side of the table.
When you've earned a victory lap, do a victory lap. I am the last one to try to deny somebody of that, given all the victory laps I've taken this year already. Force the vote and all the things.
Yes, force the vote. That's your thing.
So enjoy it, Robby. I'm cheering you on from the sidelines.
Well, thank you.
All right, well, up first, the Chinese government has rejected the Biden administration's findings that lab leak is the most likely origin of COVID-19, accusing the U.S. of politicizing the issue.
中方坚决反对借溯源问题搞任何形式的政治操弄。情报部门搞科学问题，本身就是将溯源问题政治化。基于美国情报部门造假、欺骗的斑斑劣迹，他们得出的结论没有任何可信度可言。美方再次翻炒实验室泄露论，抹黑不了中国，只会进一步拉低自身的信誉。我们敦促美方尊重科学和事实，停止将新冠病毒溯源问题政治化，停止搞政治溯源、情报溯源，停止干扰、破坏国际社会的团结抗疫和全球溯源科学合作。
One Chinese state media outlet even took aim at Twitter CEO Elon Musk after he tweeted his support of the lab leak origin theory, accusing Musk of biting the hand that feeds him. According to NBC News, Tesla currently has an expansive factory in Shanghai, and China is the electric car company's second biggest market.
Right, which is a reason some of us were concerned that though Elon has stated this commitment to free speech and acquired Twitter with the stated goal of improving the climate for discourse and allowing people to have contrarian opinions, etc., there was concerns that when push came to shove, because of his interest in China, he would not, if he was asked to bow to Chinese Communist Party censorship, he would do so, which would not be surprising and would not be, well, it would be an indictment of him, but it would not be unique to him by no stretch of the imagination. We're seeing over and over again American companies, it's a really pernicious problem, American companies choosing to self-censor because they have to play ball with the Chinese government. It's a big problem. It's a problem that gets around, we have the First Amendment provides protection for companies. They don't have to engage in censorship, but they're voluntarily doing it to satisfy a market demand in a country where there isn't a First Amendment. It's a really vexing problem. But so anyway, it seems that this has not stopped Elon at this stage from weighing in on the lab leak discussion.
We'll see what happens, though, because remember, there have been these moments. There was this moment where LeBron James tweeted out some support for Taiwanese protesters and then walked it back. So we'll see, with such a strong statement from the Chinese government, if people actually stick the landing.
Yeah. What did you make of that statement?
It's an interesting thing to say. So first of all, let's be clear about what has happened. A couple of departments in the U.S. government have said with low confidence that they are leaning toward lab leak theory being a possible origin of COVID. So while we're kind of celebrating this as big news because it is in such strong contrast to the flat denials that have come from corporate media and the government.
And the smearing of people.
And the smearing of people who even entertain the idea that it could be lab leak theory. It is not, of course, some conclusive definitive statement that the American government is saying it was lab leak theory.
Certainly not.
So that being the case, it is a little odd for such a strong statement to come out of China saying you are politicizing this issue. Was it politicizing the issue when there was basically massive suppression of even discussion of the lab leak theory, or is it only a political issue when there's a little bit of a door opening to even considering that possibility? Yeah,
honestly, it would, on one hand, it would make you more suspicious, their level of sensitivity to any discussion of this issue. On the other hand, I understand that the Chinese government is just incredibly sensitive about all issues, it sounds like, that they have a kind of hair trigger for being offended or perturbed by anything that is possibly against their government. So maybe they would put out a statement for any benign or mild indictment or concern expressed about that. But it isn't like they don't get worked up about saying, like, their theory is that it emerged from this wet market, is that they allow animals to be chopped up and sold in unsafe conditions that are ripe for the development of disease. And in some ways, that's not great either. I know we don't treat in the U.S. that we have arguments about the humane treatment of animals. In fact, I'm not like uniquely stigmatizing them for it, but they don't
Right.
get. But that's the competing theories that came from that. And if you say that, they don't get all, well, don't indict. What about social solidarity? What about don't bring this anti-China agenda?
It's a smoking gun because
Yeah.
they don't have proof either. Nobody has proof. That's kind of the whole point. And there was, a pretty quick cleaning up of the wet markets in a way that, is maybe geared toward addressing the pandemic, but maybe geared also toward making it impossible for us to ever know what really happened one way or the other. So look, it does seem like, what do they say, a hit dog will holler. Ignoring this would almost make it less of an issue than having this kind of reaction, giving the mild subtlety of the statements that have come out of these two, the U.S. Energy Department, et cetera. So I don't know. I don't know what provokes that sort of a thing. Maybe it is a signal to people like Elon Musk that they should watch their P's and Q's.
Yeah, not good at all. Well, liberal media still continuing to try to make sense of the Department of Energy's report. Fact checkers who eagerly dismissed lab leak as misinformation are now issuing corrections, including Snopes, PolitiFact, USA Today, and Vox. The White House, however, still resisted to accept the Biden administration's own conclusions. Here's Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday.
With his campaign, it was all about shutting down the virus and how hard it is for families with an empty chair at the kitchen table because of COVID. If we now know, according to the FBI director, who is most likely responsible for all those empty chairs at all those kitchen tables, why not do more to try to hold them accountable?
So I'm going to flip that on its head for a second. It was because of this president that took action. By the way, the last administration did not. They did not have a comprehensive plan. Actually, no.
That is responding to COVID, but where did COVID come from? If we know...
Peter, you can't tell, first of all, you can't tell me how to answer the question. I'm going to answer it for you, right? So just give me a second. So because he took those actions, he actually helped to save lives. Because he took action to make sure that people got shots in arms and put a comprehensive plan in front of the American people and put in the work, we actually were able to get to a place where COVID is not gone, but we now are in a place, we're in a different place in the pandemic, and that's because of the president.
So first of all, I want to say, I think that Ducey's framing there of it's because of China and therefore we have to have some response is exactly the concern I raised yesterday in our interview with Alina Chen, who, that there's some people who are using this as an excuse to gin up antagonism with China. There is a cohort, I think particularly, the blob is bipartisan, but there have been a number of, conservatives who are not on this kind of isolationist peace train, but who the argument is are talking about ratcheting back our involvement in Ukraine in part because they are wanting to ratchet up a conflict with China. And that's part of what all the weather balloon coverage was about, and that this is now part and parcel of another excuse to have antagonism with China. And that definitely feels like the framing of Ducey's question. So I appreciate a little bit of pushback there. However, it's also worth noting that with respect to Ducey's question, saying it's because of China when part of the scandal here is that this is a U.S.-funded lab is a kind of absurd framing.
Yeah, I'm not sure he was getting at that issue in the most thoughtful way, and then she was kind of pivoting to what the administration has done, which. Fair enough, but is not really, what we're talking about here. She could counter and say, actually, Joe Biden was very alarmed about the threat of China at a time when Trump was, in his Trumpian way, kind of be like, I'm working so well with them. They respect me, and I respect them, and we're gonna have a great deal, and that kind of thing. I kind of did a Trump mafia voice there. I don't know where my Trump impression is usually better than that.
I have a vaccine you can't refuse.
But no, you're absolutely right. Because again, this is why I keep saying that the lab leak theory, and I sound like I'm like an advocate for it. Right, I don't know. The low confidence is fair enough. I think there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that tips me in that direction, but I acknowledge that it is not enough to conclude decisively, and then there are some things that go the other way. The lack of finding the actual spillover animal in the wild is the single thing that tips me in the direction of thinking a lab leak, because in the previous outbreaks they did find that animal pretty quickly, and we have not found it. But anyway, I don't know. But again, it's a theory that is like anti-racist in some, because it indicts what the U.S. itself has done. It indicts what a consensus that spans the East and the West among scientific elites for what kind of research should be done and how it should be funded and whether it should be, and the lack of subjecting it to scrutiny, it makes all the sense in the world that the people behind that would have incentive to steer the conversation elsewhere, but it's not. It's just obscene to call it racist.
And when you frame it that way, it also raises the question of why the Chinese representative doesn't pivot and frame it as U.S. involvement in this lab, a U.S.-funded lab, yes, might have been responsible. It seems odd to accept the premise that to say it originated in China means that it's somehow the fault of the Chinese government or their negligence or a bioweapon or any of these other more far-fetched theories that have been percolating.
Yeah. Well, we will continue to follow this very closely, and we'll have Briahna's radar up for you next. Stay tuned.